Right, so my name is Michael Ng. So I've been in the UK for the past 25 years. I came to the UK as a student. Now I'm a professor at the University of Southampton. I'm currently the chairperson of the Chinese Association of Southampton, which has been here for a long time as well. It was created since 1999. Right, so without further ado, let's look at something that I can share with all of you regarding hate crimes against the Chinese people. So there are a few items that I have on my presentations. So we talk about early Chinese presence, the records, a very quick slide on hate crime, some set records, and some early Chinese migrations in the UK, and the recent hate crimes against the Chinese people, and hopefully we can have a peace and harmony society. Right, so before we start, let's have a cup of tea. So this is a green tea. So it has been in China for a long time. So we like a cup of tea, and the tea that we have, the English tea, for example, basically is evolved from the Chinese tea. So according to the legends, the tea was discovered by the Chinese emperor called Shenlong in 2737 BC. That was long time ago. So basically the story is that a leaf fell into his boiling water and he found that the water tastes better. And since then he tried to discover all kinds of different leaves, and basically he discovered Chinese tea as well as the Chinese medicine. So in 1641, when the tea comes to Europe, it was labeled as the medical drink in 1641 by the Dutch physicians and director of the Dutch East India Company, Nicholas Dix, so who wrote in his book about observations of the medical. Green tea was exported from China and introduced to the coffee houses of London shortly before the 1660 Stuart restorations. And it was very popular by the aristocrats and then to the middle classes, and then become very popular to all the common people. And it was so popular that by 1766, exports from Canton in China, it stood about 6 million pounds, about 2,700,000 kilograms of Chinese teas on the British boat. So you can see that this is very popular. And the first Chinese person that came to the UK is basically from Nanjing, and he is a convert to Catholicism, and he was brought to Europe by the Flemish Jesuit priest Philippe Couplet. In 1687, so the first Chinese man, his English name is Michael Alphonsius. His surname is Shen. His Chinese name is Shen Fuzhong. Shen Fuzhong. So he visited King James II, and he was the first Chinese man to visit the Britain Island. King James II was very delighted, and that he had his portrait made and hung in his bedroom. So at the early time, Chinese tea, Chinese men, they are all very welcome in the UK. And Mr. Shen also helped to catalog all the Chinese books in the library and describe their content. So before his arrival, there are already some Chinese books in the UK already. And then after that, you got a groups of Chinese people coming to the UK. So in the early 19th century, the Chinese seaman was employed in the tea trade in the East India Company ship. They began to temporarily lodging in London. A Chinese man known as John Anthony was brought to London in 1799 by the East India Company to provide accommodation for the Lascar and Chinese sailors. So a lot of Chinese sailors, so they come and they lodge in London. And the first presence of Chinese people in Liverpool dates back to 1834, when the first vessel directly from China arrived in Liverpool's dock to trade silk and cotton wool. So Chinese goods are very popular. So you have Chinese tea, you have Chinese silk, and also the cotton wools. And then in 1860s, Chinese immigrants arrived in Liverpool as a result of Alfred Holt and Company. So there are many British companies as well employing them, employing the Chinese seamen, while they are establishing the Blue Funnel shipping line. So you can see on the right-hand side, you got Chinese people recruited by the East India Company to work on the ships. So for the tea trade, and it's 1895. So these are the early records. So everything seems to be good. Yeah, all of them are welcome. Things are good, but later on something happened. Yeah. So what is hate crime? So before we go to the bad news, we look at what is hate crime. Any criminal offense which is perceived by the victim or by other person to be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on the following 5 identity. For example, the race or perceived race, religion or perceived religions, disability or perceived disability, sexual orientation, as well as a transgender identity. So a lot of time, bad things happen because of money. Yeah, so the love of money is the evil of all. So as you can see earlier, the trade is basically very imbalanced. So the direct maritime trade between Europe and China began in 1557 when the Portuguese leased an outpost from the Ming dynasty in Macau. Okay, so, and then there are many trades between the Europe and China. And then in the 18th century, the demand for the Chinese luxury goods, for example, the silk, porcelain, and tea, it created a trade imbalance between China and Britain. So basically, the Chinese people, they are self-sufficient. They are not buying many things from the Britain or the Europe. So there's an imbalance there. So to counter the imbalance, the British East India Company began to grow opium in Bengal and allow private British merchants to sell opium to Chinese smugglers for illegal sale in China. So opium used to be legal, and then it became illegal. So basically, the Chinese emperor issued edicts making opium illegal in many times in 1729, 1799, 1814, 1831. Yeah, but then there are still many smugglers. So basically, although it's illegal, but there are smugglers. By the 1838, the British were selling roughly 1,400 tons. So it's about a lot of kilograms. I'll count of opium per year to China. So basically, the Chinese are exporting the tea, and then the British are giving them the opium. So it's very unfortunate. So war happened. So the emperor said that this is illegal, but the smugglers still come in, then there are fights. And then when fights happen, then the war will also follow. So the first Opium War in 1839 to 1842, and then follow on, we got the Treaty of Nanking in 1842. So these are all unequal treaties. And Hong Kong was taken by the British to become a free and open port. And then the second war, Opium War in 1856 to 1860. And then you have also the agreement of the Convention of Peking in 1860, which led to the ceding of Kowloon Peninsula as part of Hong Kong. And then further 99 years of lease of the new territories in 1898. So basically, there is a very brief history of the past. And now let's talk about technology. So we talk about the Chinese sailors. So basically, the Chinese has been sailing in the Southeast Asia, for example, from China to Malaysia to Indonesia, for example, for many years. So as you can see from here, this is called keying. It's a 3-masted. Yeah, it's got 3 masts. Yeah, 3 masts. 800-ton Fuzhou Chinese trading junk sail, and this was sailing from China to Cape of Good Hope to New York, and then eventually to Britain. And it was purchased in August 1846, and it was done in secrecy. Basically, the Chinese government did not allow this to be sold, but it was sold secretly by the British businessmen in Hong Kong. And it arrived in Britain in 1848. And a medal was made in honor of her arrival. So this is one of the advanced, very advanced in the world at the time, so 1848. So in London news, 1848, a sentence was saying that she proved herself an excellent seaboat, and her powers of weathering a storm equal, if not surpass, those of vessels of British build. And then you can see from here, 64 years later, so when the West met the East, we learn from each other, technology advances can be accelerated. Now you got Titanic in 1912. So why I'm talking about this? Because there's another story another sad story. Not many people know about Titanic. And as we all know, the thing that we know is that Titanic departed from Southampton in 1912 to New York. And there are 2,435 passengers. My question for you is that, do you know if there's any Chinese passengers? Yeah, so in the past, when I look at the Titanic movie, I didn't know that there is a Chinese passenger, basically. And then actually there are 8 of them. And they all pay the fee as a third-class passengers. And they believe to be professional sailors. And they are going to Caribbean for work. So these are the 3 of the photos that they discovered. So the sad record is that when Titanic sank on a cold night in 1912, there are only about 700 people escaped with their lives. And only one of the lifeboats that escaped the sinking ship turned back to search for the potential survivors. So in the darkness, the rescuer found a young man, a Chinese man, Fang Lang, clinging to a wooden door, shivering but still alive. So basically 6 of them survived. Yeah, and all the Titanic survivors received praise in the press, but except these Chinese people. So these 6 Chinese men were vilified due to the anti-Chinese sentiment in the West in the early 20th century. Yeah, so I think partly because at that time there are a lot of drug addicts in China. So when the Europeans look at the Chinese, they look at the drug addicts. So they think that all the Chinese are like the drug addicts. So, and then you get the anti-Chinese sentiments. So it's very unfortunate, basically. So what happened is that within 24 hours of their arrival at the immigration inspection station in Ellis Island in New York, all these 6 people were expelled from the country because of this Chinese Exclusion Act. It is a controversial law that bars the immigration of Chinese people into the US. So do we think that this is a hate crime or racism? So it's up to your interpretation, basically. And they were sent to Cuba, yeah, and then to UK. And basically there are shortage of sailors because the British sailors were enlisted in the army during the World War I. So basically they go to Cuba and the UK, yeah, as a sailors at the end. So this is a sad record. And in 1917, so during the First World War, so help from everywhere, including the Far East. So there are 84,000 Chinese men arrived on the key sites of Liverpool and Plymouth. So Liverpool is basically up at the north there, and Plymouth is here. So they are basically going through the English Channel, going past Southampton to Folkestone and ultimately to France. So why are they here? So basically, these are basically employed as the Chinese labor corps. It's a force of workers recruited by the British government in the First World War to free troops for frontline duty by performing all the difficult works like the support work and the manual labor. So altogether, there are 96,000 men recruited into the Chinese labor corps. About 140,000 Chinese men serve for both the British and the French forces. So we talk about those that are helping the British. There are also others that are helping the French. So in April 1917, the first contingent of the Chinese Labor Corps arrived at the Western Front after having left Weihai port in China in 1917. The initial route was by ship, so they have to go through the South African Cape and also the Panama Canal. So the journey is very long. So a lot of people, they fall ill and some of them die, yeah, before they arrive. So as a solution, they break up the journey. So they go through Canada and then it becomes the preferred option. So there are different routes. So what are the jobs that they were doing? So as you can see from the left, they loaded the 9.2 inch of sails. It's a very big one. So for World War I, onto the railway wagons at Boruk for transport to the front line in 1917. And also here, they also load the oats, yeah, the food onto the lorry while supervised by a British officer. So there are British officers somewhere there supervising them. So the war finished at 1918, but they are still working in 1919. Yeah, so there are still 80,000 of the Chinese labor corps working. Yeah, so basically cleaning up the mess. And where do this story go? So a lot of people do not know about this because the record was written off. Yeah, so the Chinese labor corps of the World War I finally remember after 100 years. So what happened is that near the end of the war, the American troops come and join. And basically when they put their information onto the drawing, they basically remove the Chinese people and then put on the American person. So from then, nobody know about the involvement of these Chinese people. And then later on, 100 years later, so people do some research and they found that actually behind the painting, there is a Chinese man behind. Yeah, so that is how they discover. So this is another side story. So they were helping with the World War I, and then the records were written off. Right, so this early Chinese migration in the UK. So the British East India Company controlled the importation of popular Chinese commodities such as the tea, ceramics, and the silks. So they began to employ Chinese seamen in the middle of 19th century. Those who cruise ships to Britain had to spend time in the British docks while waiting for ship to return to China. So they travel for a long distance. Yeah, it's very hard. Yeah, it's not like nowadays you got social media. You can just Zoom. You can use WhatsApp to talk to your family. By that time, there was no mobile phone. And they have to establish the earliest Chinatown in Liverpool and in London. So we talk about World War I, now we talk about World War II. So World War II, 1939 to 1945, as many as 20,000 Chinese seamen, yeah, they were employed to work in the shipping industry in Liverpool. They kept the British merchant navy afloat and kept the people of Britain fueled and fed, while the Nazis attempted to chop off the country's supply lines. So another help from Chinese people again in the World War II. So you can see here at the early day, they are very welcome. And then when the World War II finished, they are no longer welcome. Yeah. So after the World War II, the British government and the shipping companies colluded secretly. Yeah, in these 2 years, 1945 and 1946, and they forcibly deport thousands of Chinese seamen, leaving behind their British wives and mixed-race children. As you can see from here, there are 20,000 seamen. There was no woman, right? And then they come here, they work for a few years, and they met some British women, and they married, and they have wives and also mixed-race children. However, when they were deported very quickly. So their wife and the children didn't know where their father go. So when this story so right.
I think we're okay.
So,
sorry, Michael.
Yeah, so there are quite a lot of family of this family in Liverpool. So initially they thought that their father just left them for no reason, but after they discovered this thing, they realized that deported. Right. So last year was the 75th anniversary of the deportation. And the new MP of Liverpool Riverside, Kim Johnson, welcomed the Lunar New Year in February by calling the Home Office to apologize to the family. Right, and there are still some of them left behind, so they survive. So those that survive, they need to do business to feed themselves. So in UK and also in US, most of the Chinese men, they do laundry businesses between the late 19th century and the end of the World War II. So they turned to laundry because they were shut out of other types of work, such as mining, fishing, farming, and manufacturing. And they didn't have the English skills or the capital to make the other choices. So washing and ironing was considered women's work, and it was a low status. So it posed no threat to the British male workers. And the Chinese laundry were privately owned family enterprise, and it provide opportunity for the family to work in and to run a small business. So those are the survivors. Right, so we are going to talk about the hate crime against the Chinese people now. So you can see hate crime is happening right now. So it's very unfortunate. Right, so the golden era of China-UK relations. So as you can see from this picture, the Chancellor George Osborne delivered a speech to the Shanghai Stock Exchange in 2015. So he said, welcome back to a city whose population has doubled to 26 million, and the Chinese economy has grown 20-fold. So 500 million Chinese citizens have been lifted out of the grinding poverty, and their family have lived in since time immemorial. So basically, this is the biggest single contribution to making the poverty history in his lifetime. Yeah, so that was 2015, and the speech was very positive. And it was saying that the Britain can be China's best partner in the West as well. So, so hopefully by sticking together, golden era for UK-China relationship for many years to come. Yeah. So let's see. So even before that, Southampton is twin city with Qingdao Islands. Yeah. So since 1998, so there are many collaboration even before that. And we also have Chinese students and scholars. So around 216,000 Chinese students study in the UK. So according to the statistics in 2021, and 216,000 is only 0.015% of the 1.4 billion population in China. Basically, China is very big. So when you see lots of Chinese, it's not because they are rich, it's just that the population is big. And there are about 3,000 Chinese students studying in Chinese in Southampton University every year. Right, now we talk about dangerous politics and biased media blaming game. So when the politicians say something, a lot happen. Yeah, so the common people will follow. So Donald Trump's words can lead to a lot of hate crimes. So when this statement was given, things happen now. Yeah, so when the politician says something, something happened on the ground. So at times of national crisis, marginalized and minority groups often pay the greatest price. And so in the COVID-19 pandemic, hate crimes report to police from the British, Chinese, East and Southeast Asian indicated a 300% increase in the first quarter of the 2020 compared to the previous years. So Chinese students were started to be abused due to the COVID-19. Yeah, at Southampton and across the UK since the early 2020. So this is the report on the right-hand side happened to one of our Chinese students. So he was verbally abused by a group of five people. And then that happened to many of our students. So the students, the Chinese Scholars and Students Association and the Chinese Association of Southampton, we come together and we have a campaign saying that we are not virus, we are human. Yeah, so don't insult us. And at the same time, rather than playing the blame game or anything, the local Chinese community and also the local residents in Southampton, basically we try to do some positive work. So we do fundraising starting from February to fight against the pandemic. So we managed to raise £13,728, still a lot of money. And then we donate them to hospitals, one hospital in China and also to the NHS in Southampton. So you can see that we donated quite a lot of masks to the University Hospital Southampton. So this is our poster, fight with the frontline medical staff. Right, so while we are doing the work, trying to stop the spread of the virus, and then some misguided people, they are also doing their work. So their work is basically hitting people. So this is February. Jonathan Mark is not from China, he's from Singapore. So he was attacked by people saying that I didn't want your coronavirus, and he was beaten up on the Oxford Street in London. So you can see that it's a very terrible bruise on the eye. So suffer from a complicated fracture to his nose and also to his cheekbone. So that is February. And then in March, something happened locally in Southampton. So 4 Chinese university students were attacked on the 17th of March. So they are a group of teenagers. Basically, although they are teenagers, but their body size is bigger compared to the victims, the university students. The victims are quite small compared to the teenagers over here. So the Chinese Association and the Chinese police, and we also group together. Some of them cannot join the meeting, they go through the mobile phone. So basically we do a video, talk about what is hate crime, how to protect ourselves. So that is March. And then luckily, although it is very unfortunate that we have to do the lockdown, but it's also protection. So in March to March, for over a year, there are several lockdowns, and it's a quiet period where basically people are hiding in their home, and hate crime basically sort of quiet as well. But before the opening in 23rd of February, so one of our lecturers from Southampton University, Dr. Peng Wang, was subjected to racist attack by a gang of men while jogging in Southampton. So you can see that this is very terrible. Things happen, when it's unlocked, then things happen again. And then straight away, the local community come together, and then we try to provide support to the Chinese community. So we have 300 people attended an online rally on Monday, the 1st of March. So within less than a week, we have this online rally to raise awareness on racism and hate crime. So that is the first. The incident happened on the 23rd, it's a Tuesday, and on Monday we have the online rally. On the second day, Tuesday, we put out this poster to support. So it's a solidarity. Dr. Peng Wang, Southampton wants racist out. So we take the photo and then put it onto the social media on the Facebook. We just want to show that British is a country where racist is not the majority, it's the minority. So the majority of the people are here are very good. They are very supportive. You can see from here. So they all support us, and we owe them a great thanks for the support at this very difficult time. So 1 month later, April. So another thing happened now. So this now is happening to the student in Sheffield University. So what happened here is that a woman asked the Chinese girl, "Are you a Chinese?" And then when she said yes, then attack happened. So this is terrible. And then this one is also April, and it happened in London. So Dr. Daryl Law has been in UK for many years. So he was punched on the eye. So he was almost blind because of this attack. And September 2021, 25 years old Chinese research engineer was attacked by 10 teenagers at Cambridge. So even in Cambridge, this thing also happened. And there are also other Chinese people being abused verbally during that period. So these are all the very bad things that happen, especially because of the pandemics. And hopefully, we can have a peaceful and harmonious society. So my last slide here is that just want to remind everybody, so two human beings are 99.9% identical in terms of the DNA, genetically. In fact, two people of European descent may be more genetically similar to an Asian person than they are to each other. So you can have a European person, wife and husband. One of them will be more genetically similar to me, than to the other partner. So in the biological and social sciences, the consensus is clear. Race is a social construct. It's not a biological attribute. Racism is the enemy that stops the society from growing. So hopefully the politicians, so the elected politicians representing us, please avoid another Cold War. Focus on the common issues that unite the humanity. And for common people like us, don't simply be influenced by the social media. So we need to do some research as well to understand what is happening. And lastly, love, don't hate. So I like this logo very much. So that is all for me. Thank you very much. And see ya. So this is the traditional Chinese. This is the simplified Chinese. And let us finish off with the quote from Bruce Lee. Under the heaven, there is but one family. It just so happens that we look different. So that's all for me. Thank you very much. So Sam, back to you.
Yeah, many thanks, Michael. Apologies that didn't quite go to plan certain parts of it as it would have liked it to be, but certainly I think you gave some really useful awareness and information today, and I think it was helpful for all of us to get a kind of a positive sense of the Chinese community as well. So yeah, many thanks for that. I think what we'll do, I have a bit of a slide just to give some information about the network, but Michael, if I'll just give a chance for anybody who's here today to if you do have any questions for Michael about the what he's said, then feel free to ask. I'll go to Ahmed first because you've got your hand raised.
Hello, Ahmed. You are muted, Ahmed.
My microphone doesn't want to open up.
All right, okay.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Can hear you, yes.
Oh, wonderful. Technology is amazing. I don't know how you guys do it every day. Michael, can I first start with saying, I think on behalf of everybody on this call, many, many thanks for what is, for me, was a very informative presentation, not only in relation to hate crime and how long the Chinese communities have been suffering with hate crime, but also the historical lesson that I really did not know about the Chinese relationship with Europeans going back so far. So thank you very much for that. And also thank you for your professionalism, for staying cool under what I probably would have sworn at, if I'm honest about it, and how they go. But you were very professional. Well done, mate. I take, if I had a hat on, I'll take it off and think. But you're quite right. What you finished off with is the fact that hate crime is all our responsibility. We cannot just stand by side and say, well, it's not happening to me, or it's not happening to somebody I know, and therefore I'm okay with it. If we don't take up a united stand against all kind of hate crimes, then for me, personally, I will be letting the side down, no matter who it is. So it is for all our responsibility. And I know the Chinese Association of Southampton have had many years of strong working partnership with the local police, and we hope we'll build on that and strengthen it for the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ahmad. Thank you. Yeah. So the Hampshire police, yeah, especially through Ahmad, has been helping the association for many years. And thank you very much for the support, Ahmad.
Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to ask me if there's any question you have concerning my slides. I'm going to share the slide to Sam. So at the bottom of this slide, there are some sources. You can click the link and to check the sources. Yeah, to make sure that I'm not telling lies. Yeah, so you can check the source. Yeah. So I think Dave is raising his hand. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Thank you. Once again, I learned a lot, and to my shame, I mean, I'm a lifelong Southampton person. I know very, very, very little about the Chinese community here, and I'm aware just around the corner from where I live, we have the Liners Industrial Estate, which used to be a huge Chinese laundry servicing the ships. The Liners are there. Odd enough, that's where the Shaolin Temple is at the moment, but that's part of our local history and tradition that we perhaps have overlooked, paid little attention to, differently perhaps to some of the way we've celebrated some of the contributions of other migrant communities that have settled in Southampton. And it certainly struck me, I was impressed with the contribution that Chinese people made to both world wars, and how that's not necessarily reflected in our annual cenotaph memorial, and then whether there might be some thoughts about how we can acknowledge and raise people's awareness about the contribution of Chinese people. The question I have, though, is about, if you like, to me, there was always an established Chinese population in Southampton, perhaps through links with Hong Kong, Cantonese community, and perhaps working in service sector, laundries, perhaps in, restaurants and things like that. And then, of course, in the 1970s, there were people fleeing persecutions, from Vietnam, who were ethnic Chinese that were resettled here. But more recently, we've had, in the last 20 years, significant increase in the Chinese population studying here, and the links with Qingdao that you've mentioned. And they're a slightly different group of people. And so I often see lots of Chinese people around, sometimes on the buses or when I'm going to the gym or something like that, but I don't feel that there's any kind of integration. And I just wanted that takes lots of people to tango to make that happen. And I was just wondering what more we can do from people who are working in civil society and others to understand and make people feel welcome, so that we can see life through the eyes of our Chinese constituents and come to their help and support or something like that. It strikes me it's that we've worked with a lot of other communities, sometimes perhaps have been keen to identify themselves and want to make links. Perhaps here we need to do a little bit more. And I just wondered, through your role as the chair of the Chinese Association, whether there's anything we could do more to strengthen our understandings and relationships. These are thoughts that occur to me. And I am a politician, and while I was a politician in charge of cabinet, things like that, the leader, Chris Hammond, did impress upon me we needed to do more work. I don't think I did enough, but I think that there's more we can or should be doing, and I'd really like some ideas from yourself where we should be looking.
Yeah, I think the involvement of politicians and also the mayor, for example, in fundraising, so we get the mayor involved in the poster, and then we managed to reach more people basically, and it also show the positive image of Southampton, the governance. So we do have big events, for example, the Chinese New Year. So this year we got quite a lot. So the first one is on the 30th of January on a Sunday in Westgate, and the second one is the 6th of February in the Guildhall Square, and the third one is the 12th of February in Guildhall Square. And there are also some other smaller celebrations by different groups. So I would encourage you to join us. We do not have enough chairs, but please come and stand around and enjoy the show. Yeah, especially on the 30th of it's an indoor. It's a free event. And so although you got Chinese, you got non-Chinese, and although in China you also have 56 ethnic groups, the Han Chinese is the biggest. But actually, we are all 99.9% similar. So basically, you are my brother and my sister, right? So it's just that we live in different parts of the world. We develop our own culture, our own different way of dancing, different way of music. So it's good to share the culture in the big event like the Chinese New Year, so that we can appreciate each other. And I think that is where the friendship and the collaboration will start. Yeah, I think And as you mentioned, also there are different time in history, different type of Chinese come along. So you got the Hong Kong and also the Vietnamese, and now you got the Chinese student from mainland China. Yeah. So even myself, yeah, I'm from Malaysia. So I was not born in China, So I was also born in Malaysia. And the good thing I'm proud as a Chinese is that we speak the same language. Although I'm speaking Mandarin, not Cantonese, but the writing is the same. So even when you write it down, although the Hong Kong people pronounce it in a different way, the mainland people pronounce it in a different way, but the writing is exactly the same. We can understand each other. So and by not losing our language, we basically understand each other. So no matter whether I'm from Malaysia, from Vietnam, from mainland China, Hong Kong, or Taiwan, or anywhere, even my son who is born in the UK, so we understand the Chinese language. I think that is a bond. It's not like a religion, but the language itself bonds us together. Thank you. Lina, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, Michael. Thank you for your presentation. It was very, very insightful. I, like you, I work at the University of Southampton, and I am a tackling harassment advisor. So I deal with the report and support tool. I don't know if you've heard much about report and support. Right. Essentially, I'm based within student services, and my role is to carry out project work and to also support students affected by harassment, bullying, hate crime, sexual misconduct and discrimination. And part of my role is to sort of find ways to ensure that international students can engage within the support at the university. And I think it'd be good if we could sort of work together to potentially discuss any ways that you think would be really helpful for us as student services to sort of engage with international students. Yeah. And with regards to sort of hate crime, I would say I started my role back in May, so I saw a few hate crimes coming in through the reporting tool, and a lot of them were to do with Chinese students. Since then, I haven't seen as much, but of course, that's not representative of the university because that's the reports that are only coming through that reporting tool. But I think it'd be good for us to maybe come together and discuss potential campaigns that student services could sort of work with you on, and ways to engage students into support within the university.
Yeah, I type in my email here, so please contact me, for a follow-up meeting if there is a.
Thank you. I just think it'd be great for us to sort of work with each other, because we have such a large Chinese community at the university, and I think there's so many different departments within the university. You only sort of meet people in meetings like this, so that's great. I'll make contact with you about that, Michael, and thanks again for the presentation. It was very, very insightful.
Thank you very much. I guess we go back to Sam.
Yeah, unless there's no more questions for Michael. I mean, if you've obviously you can see Michael's email there in the chat box now. So anything you want to ask him, then feel free to do so after this meeting. But now I'll give some information on the Southampton-Hampshire hate crime network and how you can get in touch with us if needs be. So just bear with me a second and I'll just get that shared. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that. Basically, so hopefully this is just give you some information on how you can contact us. So I'm the Southampton and Hampshire Hate Crime Network coordinator, and you can email me on sam.waddington@spectrumcil.co.uk. You can phone me. The best number to ring me on at the moment is the mobile. So if you 075 11 618 232, and that's the address of where I'm based at. So I work as the network coordinator, but I'm work for Spectrum Centre for Independent Living, who support disabled people in the area, and we're one of the network members. So that explains that. And obviously, contact me about any questions about the network or hate crime in general. And if you'd like any resources to help your organisation or